Let me describe someone that doesn't know who he is. First of all, his birthday was May 13th. I keep a track of him. Yes, I do. He ran his own company. That's right. He's a community leader, number 2. Number 3, he's a top 100 maverick in business in the United States of America, number 3. Number 4, he's a great influence, not just an influence, but a great influence. Number 5, he mentors a lot of young people, even those incarcerated. Number 6, he's a man of faith. And number 7, his favorite book is spelled Bible, stands for Basic Instructions Before Leaving Earth. Without further ado, my dear friend, out of Houston, Texas, the great, the one and only, Mr. Dwight Williams.
Good morning, Mr. Thomas, and good morning to everyone here. I appreciate the opportunity to come on and speak. I really, really do thank you guys for taking the time to listen. Mr. Thomas, again, as I always say, you could do this with anybody. I appreciate it. You got a world-class lineup. You could do your own international right now. I mean, between Ms. Driscoll and Miss Ismail and Mr. Lewis and Mr. Foster, and you could have a knockout international, man, with just the team you already got. And so you should seriously be thinking about that. I'm telling you, man, you guys are killing it. You got a killer group. Let me know, because I can go ahead and start me an event. I can just have them speak, and I can just I'm just teasing. But I just want to just say thank you to you guys for coming out today. Today we're gonna talk. I won't, like a preacher, like I say all the time, I won't be before you long. Just give me 7 more minutes. 7 more minutes. I'm really glad to be here. And the calls that we've had this week have really been phenomenal. They have really been phenomenal calls. I listened to Miss Ismail's call, and the donkey and shaking off the dirt and standing on the dirt, and the inspiration is and then the training on yesterday, Mr. Lewis just put it in there, didn't he? He just knocked that thing out the park. And it's that kind of stuff, I'm gonna tell you, boy, that makes all the difference, because any one thing that's said that can change a person's game. Remember, the knowledge is the key to, I say, any breakthrough in life is a breakthrough in knowledge. And so when I hear things like we've been getting this week, it's really encouraging. So I'm just letting you guys know, if you, like Mr. Thomas says, if you got a notepad, you need to be taking notes, because the information that I'm gonna be honest with you, the information that comes across this Zoom, many people pay for and would pay for this information that's not charged for. I'm telling you, people pay for less information than this, let alone this. And so I'm just saying, you guys don't take for granted when you've got jewels and opportunities and blessings among you. So I say again, Mr. Thomas, thank you, and thank you again. I really appreciate it. It is much a privilege as you may think. Me coming on here, it's more of a privilege that you consider me. So I really want to say thank you. Today, we're just going to talk today. And really and truthfully, when I mentor, I mean, as a matter of fact, I've got a lineup of mentors through this weekend, and of people that I'll be meeting with, and I just talk to them about where they are. But in most cases, I have kind of a snapshot of where they are in their career, and a lot of them are in relationship marketing. Many are not. Many are business owners starting businesses and building businesses. And that's what we do. We kind of take and help people get unstuck in a lot of cases. So so I just typically, what I do is I just simply talk to them and we have a conversation, which is what we're going to do today. So let's jump right in. The story I'm about to tell, I'm going to tell a couple of stories. I'm going to start with my story. some of you may have heard portions of it, but I'm going to take some time and talk through a few more details today. I, I I've been like Mr. Thomas. Mr. Thomas, you can agree at any point. I've been working since I was 15, 16 years old. I've been working since the moment I could work. Um, and I told you guys that the reason I started working is because whenever I wanted something, and I always wanted something, desire is the key to is one of the keys to success. Is the if a person doesn't desire anything, they're not going to do anything to get anything if they don't have anything they want. So I always had desire, and so I was always hungry, and so I would, my dad worked for 38 years for AT&T, and so I knew that when all I knew was when you wanted something, you went to work, and so I saw him do it for a long period of time, so I figured that's the way to do it, and so that's what I did. And so at an early age, when I started, I had a car before most kids get a driver's license. I mean, because I needed to move around. And so, and that movement allowed me to create new opportunities. And so I was always looking for a way to gain leverage. So I, so I worked for all kinds of places, and I worked hard. And a lot of the things that we talk about on here about value creation and market and all of that stuff, I learned a lot of that stuff the hard way. I just, I was blessed to have good principles that I built on. So whenever I went into a job, I'm gonna make you laugh. They hated to let me go. If I went to work for you, I was gonna do everything I could to be number one. So my first job was frying chicken. And I know you're probably thinking, how do you become number one fried chicken? Yes, but I did. So much so that when I got ready to quit, they offered me the day shift. I guess that's the best position that's a promotion in the chicken frying business. It's the day shift. So I went from the closing shift. They said, hey man, what if we promoted you to the day shift? Because we don't want to lose you. You are the fastest chicken fryers that we. But and I'm gonna tell you, I could drop chicken like none other. So so I had this thing that I would hustle to be the best. I always wanted to be the best at anything I did. And so it helped me to understand a rule, Mr. Thomas, and you can back me on this. I learned from that I talk to people often that are always worried about, I don't want to get fired. I never worried about that. I never concerned myself with being terminated. Why? What would you ever terminate the guy that's out producing everybody else at your place? Never. Absolutely never. Never caused you trouble, never caused you a problem. When I went to work for Southwestern Bell, I don't know if you guys remember 911. Everybody remember 911 where you could get, not 911, 411, where you could get information? Anybody remember that? You're about to date yourself, so you may not want to raise your hands. But if you remember 411, you could dial 411 and ask, hey, I need the number to such and such, and they give you that number. Well, I worked that department for what is AT&T now, which was Southwestern Bell then. I worked so hard one day, I covered all the calls for half a day. Every call that came into the center, I was answering it. Now, this is not to pump me up, or I'm not doing that. I promise you, that's not what this is about. All I'm telling you is value. They say that your compensation is based on the value that you bring to the marketplace. It's a true statement. More value you bring to the marketplace, the more compensation. So take ACN. The people who, now most people say work the hardest. I work the hardest. I'm gonna tell you, I got a rule. I don't like to work. Now you don't laugh at me, don't criticize me, don't talk bad about me till I explain myself. I don't mind creating value. I don't like to work hard. I just don't. Now, I like leverage. And now, so let me explain. People say, well, Dwight, you have to work. Every time I say that, people lose their mind. You have to work. Dwight, you have to work. No, that's not true. God never worked. He spoke. He said, let there be light. He did more with speaking than any of us do actually doing work. So why would I want to do what he doesn't do? He said I was created in his image and his likeness. So what do? Hey, John, I need you to go move that for me. Hey, George, I need you to go. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to speak and get the stuff done. I'm just teasing, but I've always looked for leverage instead of looking for work. And so I I got my first career job at a company, full circle, Mr. Thomas knows, MCI Telecommunication. Now, I don't know who all on here may be familiar with that company, but I can assure you Mr. Thomas is definitely familiar with that company. And I sold long distance. Well, I didn't sell it. I was an IT guy, but that's what that company did. I worked there for 3 4 years, and I've told the story of how that transition happened. But I provided a lot of value, but I didn't know it at first, and it took a guy that I hired, and he and I getting in a conflict for him to wake me up and say, "Hey, you think you make? They told you that you're hiring me to work for you when you don't know that they're paying me more money than they're paying you." It was such a shocker to me. It was this blow. But I woke up the next day and I should have waited, but I went in and they increased me. 6 weeks, 6 months later, I went back in, they increased me again, and they kept increasing. Why did they keep increasing? Because I was providing a massive amount of value, incredible amount of value. And that's the first thing I want you to think about all the time. Whenever you think about what you do, focus not on the money that you get for what you do, but focus on the value that you can bring to what you do. The money is a byproduct of that. So the more value that you create and bring into a marketplace, the more compensation that marketplace is going to give to you. I'm telling you, I know that for a fact. I would never have a conversation about trying to keep a job. Why? Because I'm just going to create value. If they're crazy enough to fire me, fire me. I don't care. I've never been fired. Never, and never would. I would never fire myself. Because think about it. Why would you? Now, next. So I left there and I went to work for another company. Now, I want you to pay attention to this. Everything I've done thus far has made me money, and in a lot of cases, more money, but it has never created wealth for me. And it's never created any form of freedom. The next company I went to, I made a lot of money at a young age, but I traveled a lot and I worked hard. I was working 16 hours a day. So I had no freedom. I was never at home. I was gone all the time. Now, we hear this conversation all the time about time and financial freedom. But the simple answer to time and financial freedom, Mr. Thomas knows this as well, is leverage. I didn't get leverage. Now, I went, no, let me go full circle. So I went to work for MCI. I left there and went to work for another company. Still no leverage. But watch this. I then left there and went to work for myself as an independent contractor. Now you would say, oh, okay, so now you finally got freedom. No, 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 absolutely not. When you're self-employed, you work harder for yourself than you work for anybody. You know, if you think you didn't have freedom working for this other guy, you won't have any freedom working for yourself. Because why? You're the only guy producing everything. So now you're everything in that company. Anytime that a bill doesn't get paid, you have to take care of it. Anytime an invoice doesn't get paid, or the person doesn't send your check or any of that, you have to handle all of that. Plus, you have to do all the work. You have to do everything. Self-employed, it was the worst position for me for all. I had no freedom when I worked for myself. None. I had no freedom. I was never home. I was always busy. Don't get me wrong. I loved it. Don't get me wrong. I loved it because I made a lot of compensation, and I created a lot of value, but I never had any freedom. So I kept looking at business models, trying to figure out what is the right thing. None of this works for me because it wasn't just about how much money I could make. Because making money, you make enough money, you begin to realize, wait a minute, something is missing. I'm never home. I'm never able to rest. I'm never able to live, and I wanted to live. I and I will tell you, I stumbled upon my first opportunity to start a company because the client I was doing work for asked me to not do work direct, but to have a corporation, and I formed a company. they then begin to ask for more than me. They begin to ask for more than I could provide. And so I had to go hire people. Now, this is what the subject of this conversation is about. And this is building on what Mr. Lewis talked about yesterday. Well, partially out. Not recruiting is everything. Any business that is a business recruits. Why? Because you cannot have leverage without recruiting. It is as simple as that. If you work for a company, they hired you. They hired you because they want leverage. Well, you would say, yeah, but why didn't they just do the work themselves? Well, they could and make 1/10 the revenue. But if they hire 10 people to do the work, they make 10 times the revenue. That's the power of leverage. And so I didn't understand or know anything. Now, you heard me say I stumbled onto that because I didn't know that I was on this divine path to discovery, because I was just making money and I hadn't really thought. I just knew I wasn't in the right model, even self-employed. I knew I wasn't in the right place. And when the first time I got a company, I realized that there's a better way. There's a way that I gain leverage. So I remember I'm gonna tell you a story. I don't know if I've told this story. Eli Lilly is a company, one of my clients, actually. Eli Lilly was a client of mine for almost 2 years. And when you go to work for Eli Lilly in your beginning, they do, quote unquote, what I call, they take you to heaven. There's in their headquarter building, there's a top floor suite that's got a chef and it's got a dining area and all that. And that's where all the C-suites, the execs, eat their lunch. And so every now and then they would bring up a new person or a person's anniversary. They bring them up, what I call, they take them to heaven. And the person would come out of there so illuminated, they'd almost want to work for free. They come out of there just like God, they had got the Holy Ghost, and so they would be they come so wired up and motivated. Now I say that because I'm talking about a bunch of little things here, but I'm really hitting on when you recruit, and I learned this. I'm gonna tell you a story. One of the first people that I brought into my ACM business was a lady. She owned a donut shop that I had done business with for years upon years, and I may have told you about her. And I had all her services. I had cell phones, I had energy accounts, business, home, several cell phones. I had a credit card process. So I had probably 40 points with just this one client. And I had her as a client for years. The problem I made, Mr. Thomas is gonna love this one right here. You know the problem is, you know how I got her as a client? I showed her how much money she was gonna save. That was a mistake. It was a deadly mistake. Because can I guarantee that I'm always gonna be the cheapest? No. Do I even care that I'm the cheapest? Absolutely not. I don't want you to do business with me because you save money, because that's not what this is about. I want you to do business with me because we have a relationship and there is benefit that is derived on both mutually through our network. So yeah, I buy donuts and kolaches for you for tens of years. I want you to buy cell phones and electricity from me, from nobody else. And I don't even want, now I'm pretty bold. And so I'm gonna talk crazy nuts to you. I don't even want to have a conversation or find out you ever bought a cell phone or energy from anybody else. Well, why? Because I'm not gonna buy donuts or kolaches or anything else from anybody else either. Why? Because we have a relationship. And in that relationship, there's fidelity in that we serve, if possible, each other to ensure that we keep that money in our own circle. And we know that, and we understand the benefit of that. And if I ever find out you went outside my circle, it's going to be a problem. Now, you may think that's nuts and that's crazy, but it is not. It is how business is done. It is absolutely how business is done. People sign operating agreements and contracts that say, these are the rules of engagement that we're going to do business among each other. And why wouldn't we think the same way? Took business to teach me how to think that way. And I started changing the way. So when I came into the ACM business, it was a no-brainer. I knew what to do when I came up. So I'm a, I'm a, I'm gonna keep going. So I learned leverage in that first company. That's how I learned the power of leverage. Next thing you know, I got a contract with several Fortune 1000, but one customer I got a contract with was Chevron. For over 20 years, I was in Chevron. I wasn't in Chevron. I had people working in Chevron for me, leverage. So my wife was free. We were free. We could go travel. I could do, if something came up, I could go. I didn't have to say, well, let me check my schedule to see. No, no, no. The schedule was my schedule. I set the schedule. Nobody else set my schedule. Could I afford to do it? I had surplus. I was producing at a level that freed me to financially and time-wise. So I had evolved away from self-employment, thinking that was better than being an employee. That wasn't, though. Matter of fact, it proved to be time-wise worse than being an employee. It was better financially, but worse time-wise. So I knew even that I needed to change. And fast forward, I started a second. So I'm gonna tell you a story about my next company. I sold that first company, and I started another company. And I remember we had a project in California. Oh, by the way, the first company, I gained more leverage. We expanded into the California market. I built a training center that had served the Bay Area. So we quickly learned how to take advantage of leverage. So we fast forward, we started another company. During Y2K, we did work for Fujitsu in the Bay Area. Interesting story. Once you understand leverage, you understand how powerful leverage is. I had a guy working for me at this project before I joined the project. When I joined the project, the guy working for me at the project, he was in the office next door to the person from France that was the project lead. He put me in a cubicle, and I was working out of a cubicle. And so he would say, man, you want me to get, don't get me in the office. Absolutely not. So he would fill out his timesheet, bring it to me to approve so he could take it back and give it to her next door to his office. So it took her a year to figure out that I actually owned the company. Why? Because I didn't care about title, recognition, or any of that. You know what I cared about? It's leverage. I knew that that if they ever found out that we were in the same company or had the company, they hired a guy that they only wanted to be a consultant or a contractor, and then all of a sudden he owns a business and blah, blah, blah. It could complicate things, and it could be a risk to the contract, and I didn't want that. Why? Because what I really wanted was leverage. The rest of that did not matter to me. Sometimes we get mixed up in the organizations that we build and titles and recognition. And don't get me wrong, recognition is important, but recognition is important for the people that are in your organization. It's important to let, but it can't be important among us. It can't, that Mr. Thomas, me and Mr. Thomas, the fact that Mr. Thomas is an SVP, I will honor and respect to the day, and none of the rest of that matters. Why? Because the key is my team. So Dwight, what do you mean by that? I'm going to tell them and say, I got a guy that you need to meet. Who is this guy? Flies his own jet. This guy is a legend in his own time, blah, blah, blah. Why? Because he and I are working together to help this person fulfill the vision in life they have for themselves. That's why. So I remember recruiting. Whenever I'm recruiting, I'm very, very right brain, the emotional side. I stay away from left brain. And I've been in many interviews, and I've never been in an interview where they say, Dwight, well, here's what you're going to do. You're going to be using the C code, and you're going to get a Windows laptop. You're going to program for about 6 hours a day. No, they say, hey man, this is Tesla. Tesla is the first and most popular electric car vehicle company on the planet. We're going to change the world. Soon we're going to move from cars, we're going to move into airplanes and transport and distribution. Next thing you know, we're going to be in space. We're going to be in the sky. We're going to change the way people live every day. By the time a person comes out of that interview, he's so jazzed up, he's so wired up, he's shaking. Why? He said, I'm about to be a part of something that's about to change the world. So I never talk to people right left brain. I never talk to them about the what and what. I always talk to them about the why. I always focus on the why. How, what is it, what it is, why you're doing it, who we're going to become, and why you want to be here, and where you're going to fit. The what doesn't really matter at that point. Who cares about that? They'll run through fire once what we're talking to them about matters so much. The reason I say that is I've been in a number of interviews, and I noticed, and even me, when I started to interview, I would talk about salaries and rates. I stopped doing that. I stopped talking to people about money in interviews. I started talking to people about vision and where the company was going, and people wanted to become a part of what we were doing so bad they would do whatever. I remember, I may have mentioned, I remember a story that I saw about Apple Computer. And it was they were interviewing this guy. Now, I'm not ever going to ask anybody to go to this extent, but they were interviewing the guy that worked on the iPhone, and they asked him. They says, you know, we've heard stories. Or he says, yeah, I lost everything. I lost my family. He says, I lost my wife. I lost it all. This company working for this guy. He said, but how many people you know on the planet can say that they did something that changed the world? How does it's crazy that he could justify losing everything he lost, but he had tears in his eyes, crying. This was when Steve Jobs passed. He was crying and thinking about, yes, I lost everything, but I changed the world. And so I encourage you, when you're talking to people in recruiting. I'm not gonna hold you. I'm almost done. The funniest thing, I think about this all the time. Jesus is the greatest recruiter ever. Think about that. I mean, he just an incredible recruiter. He gets these guys that've been fishing all night long, ain't caught no fish. We find people all the time that say, "Hey, man, I'm good." Jesus say, "Hey, you caught any fish?" Nah, we didn't catch any fish last night. Well, come on with me. Let's go out into the deep. And they probably thinking, first of all, why did they even follow him? Because they're like, we're fishermen. We just had a bad night. He said, well, come on, follow. Well, first they decided to follow him. They go out and he says, oh, okay, cast your nets over here. The fact that they even did that too. But then once they get a net full of fish, which is why results are so important when we're building our businesses. It's crucial that we help people get results. I never talk about my involvement in ACN on here because I really want to stay right brain. But Mr. Thomas knows, and Mr. Thomas helped us. And Mr. Thomas is really exceptional individual. You guys just don't know. I met Mr. Thomas when we first got in the business, and he spent a lot of time with us. We hit RD in 13 months. Mr. Thomas is phenomenal. He to the point where he doesn't even know the stuff he does half the time. So, and he was one of the individuals that contributed to our success. So, and the reason I'm saying this is because it's watching individuals who are masters of this industry, who are really good at what they do, has helped shape how we do what we do. And not only in a business like ACN, in business in general. What I'm showing you right now, or telling you right now, is and my partner says everything is one thing, that everything is connected. When I mentor people, I don't talk to people about their business. I talk to people about who they are. Remember, you be, do, and have. And if you're not attracting the people you need in your business, it's because you're not attractive. And I don't mean that in a negative way. Don't take that negative, because that's not what I meant. What I mean is, do something to make yourself more attractive. I was telling you about Jesus. Jesus recruited the fisherman, the lady at the well. He signed up a leader right at the well. Jesus was masterful. He walks upon people, can talk to them about anything. Hey, what you doing? I'm just getting water. Why are you talking to me? You're not even supposed to be talking to me. I make that decision. I can decide. So he'd already captured her attention. The moment he started talking to her, a Samaritan, and he's a Jew talking to a Samaritan, she's like, you're not even supposed to be talking to me. So he says, hey, what you about to get, some water? What if I told you there's a different kind of water? These are the kinds of conversations that we can have with people that connect them to us. We have to be compelling in how we communicate. By the time he was done, she ran out to the street and recruited his next group, talking about, let me come see a man. I need y'all to come see this guy. I need y'all to come see a man that just told me stuff about me that there's no possible way. And we have to be as attractive and compelling when we communicate. For example, even in recruiting Mr. Thomas, as a matter of fact, Mr. Thomas is the one I saw do this the first time. I don't ever go for apps. I never talk to people about, I'm not trying to sign you up with an app. That's not what that's no, apps don't do anything. Even services, the only kind of services I'm looking for, maybe somebody that wants to sign up a service for me. That's not what I'm after. I'm after people who are looking for me. I'm after people who are looking for an opportunity. I'm after people, I'm looking for people who are looking for me. So you would say, what does that actually, I've heard that before, but what does that actually mean? See, if a person is not really looking for an opportunity, I'm not going to try and coerce them to do it because they're not looking for it. There are enough people out here that are. Why would I try to wait? Why would I spend my, Mr. Lewis, what did Mr. Lewis say yesterday? They asked him, so what do you do with somebody? Leave them alone. Stop wasting your time. Why? Because I'm looking for the person that's looking for me. Because that person is going to be easy. Everybody we signed up to hit those dates, they did their own work. I didn't know what to do. Mr. Thomas will tell you in a second, don't know what to do. Don't do anything, let people do. And I did what they told me to do. And what these guys told, they actually did. The more I work with a person, the more crippled they become. The less I worked with people, the more they did on their own. It's the craziest thing. Now, so I got most of my results at the beginning when I didn't know what to do. They were like, hey, Mr. Williams, can you help me? I don't know what to do. You're just going to have to figure it out. But the more I figured it out, the more I slowed the process down. Oh, yeah, let me show you. Let me send you a list of it. They're like, oh, yeah, okay, well, we're going to wait until you send that. And I learned to stop doing that. Why? What did I start looking for? People were looking for me. I started looking for leaders. Think about a church. You go to a church. And they say to you, hey, Mr. Dwight, you should come to our church because God is at our church. Oh, because God is at your church. Yeah, God is at my church. Oh, and by the way, when you come to my church, the next thing I'm going to want to do is I'm going to want to recruit your friends. So I'm going to need you to give me a list of your friends so I can get them to join too. So I can get them to come to my church as well. I'm not going to that church. But if I come to your church and I invite you to an event, I had an event this past Friday. We invited a bunch of people too. Those people came and they enjoyed. A lot of those people came back the next Sunday, that Sunday, following Sunday. Why? Because they came to the event. They enjoyed the event. I didn't try to recruit them I introduced them to an opportunity. My job is to introduce people to opportunities. That's all I do. I'm looking for people who are looking for an opportunity that I have. I introduce them to the opportunity and I let them make the decision. I don't try to convince them, coerce them, or any of that. I just put it in front of them. Now, Mr. Lewis, Mr. Thomas, and this entire team, they have given you one piece of advice that is crucial. They say all the time, you need to be presenting this business to as many people as you can. People need to see the opportunity. The rest, why they didn't do it, I never concern myself with that. That is not my job. That's their job to sign up. My job, I have one responsibility to this equation. And that's to make sure that there's a chance that they may not know about it, to make sure I eliminate that. Once I eliminate that, the rest is on them. Now, are we here for leadership and guidance? Of course, there's plenty. ACN has every tool you need to build your business. There's trainings on weekends. There's trainings throughout the week. Mr. Thomas has trainings all. So there's no shortage of the tools and mechanisms that you need to build your business. The only thing we have to do is present the gospel of ACN to as many people as we possibly can. That's all we have to do. And with that, Mr. Thomas, I'm going to turn it back over to you.